Hey there, and welcome. Today we're going to go on a pretty incredible journey. We are going to follow a single tiny ray of light from the outside world right through the human eye and into the brain to figure out exactly how we see everything around us in all its amazing detail and color. Okay, let's get right into it.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You step inside from the bright sun, and for a couple of seconds, poof, you can't see a thing. It's this totally universal experience, and by the end of this little explainer, you'll know exactly why that happens. It's actually a huge clue to how magnificent and adaptive our eyes really are.
You know, the best way to wrap your head around the human eye is to think of it like a super sophisticated living camera. Seriously, it's got a lens, it's got an aperture to control light, a focusing system, and a sensor, and they all work together perfectly to capture the world. It is an absolutely astounding piece of natural engineering.
Okay, so what you're looking at here, this is basically our map for the journey. We can see all the key players. You've got the cornea right at the front. That's our main lens. Then there's the colored iris that controls the pupil, which is kind of like the camera's aperture. Behind that, you've got the flexible crystalline lens for all the fine-tuning. And way at the back, that's the retina. Think of it like a movie screen or a camera sensor. These are the stops on our tour.
All right, let's follow that ray of light. Its one and only goal is to land perfectly on the retina at the back of the eye. It's basically a high-speed race through all these different transparent layers, and each one bends and guides it, pushing it closer to its final destination. First stop, the very front of the eye.
So the cornea is like the eye's front window, but it's way more than just a window. It's a really powerful, fixed lens. Get this, it does about 2/3 of all the light bending, or what's called refraction, that's needed to focus an image. It is the first and the most powerful step in the whole focusing process. Okay, next up, our light passes through the pupil. Now the iris, that's the colored part of your eye, blue, green, brown. It's this amazing muscle that controls how big the pupil gets. In bright light, the iris clamps down, making the pupil a tiny pinhole to limit how much light gets in. But in the dark, it pulls wide open to let in every possible bit of light. And that is the answer to our opening question. That moment of blindness is just your iris taking a few seconds to adjust to the new light level. Pretty cool, huh?
After the pupil, our ray of light hits the crystalline lens. And this is the eye's incredible autofocus system. It's attached to these tiny things called ciliary muscles that can squeeze and stretch it, changing its shape. So when you look at something far away, the lens gets thinner. When you look at something up close, like your phone, those muscles contract and the lens gets thicker or more powerful. This amazing process is called accommodation.
And at last, our ray of light, now perfectly focused, finally lands on the retina. The retina is the camera's sensor, and it's packed with over 125 million light-sensitive cells called rods and cones. This is where the light energy gets converted into electrical signals. And here's a wild fact for you. The image that forms on your retina is actually upside down. Your brain gets those signals from the optic nerve, flips the image right side up, and then tells you what you're seeing.
So that's how it's supposed to work. But what happens when that journey goes a little bit wrong? What if the light doesn't land perfectly on the retina? Well, that's the cause of the most common vision problems we all know about. It's when the eye's camera system is just a tiny bit out of calibration.
First up is myopia, or what most of us just call nearsightedness. This is when you can see things up close just fine, but things far away get all blurry. It usually happens for one of two reasons. Either the eyeball itself is a little too long, or the lens system is just too strong, bending the light way too much.
And this diagram just shows the problem perfectly. See in that top picture? The light rays from something far away are coming to a focus before they even get to the retina. So by the time they actually hit the retina, they've started to spread out again, and that's what creates that blurry, unfocused image.
Now, the opposite problem is hypermetropia, or farsightedness. With this, distant objects might look okay, but you really struggle to focus on things close up. This is caused by an eyeball that's a bit too short, or a lens system that's just not powerful enough to bend the light from nearby objects into focus.
And if we look at this diagram, you can see exactly what's happening. The light rays from a close object are still on their way to a focus point when they hit the retina. The actual focus point is, well, somewhere behind the eye, and that's why the image you see is all blurry.
Okay, but here's the beautiful thing about these problems. They have a really elegant, really simple solution. All we have to do is place another lens in front of the eye, in glasses or contacts, and we can pre-correct the light to get its journey right back on track. So for myopia, or nearsightedness, we use a concave lens. That's one that's thinner in the middle. What it does is spread the light rays out just a tiny bit before they enter the eye. That little bit of divergence is enough to cancel out the eye's overfocusing, and it pushes the focal point backward until it lands, bam, precisely on the retina. The result? Clear distance vision.
And for hypermetropia, you guessed it, we do the exact opposite. We use a convex lens, which is thicker in the middle. This shape gives the light rays an extra little focusing boost, converging them slightly before they even reach the eye. That extra power brings the focal point forward, right onto the retina where it belongs, and just like that, you get clear close-up vision again. Okay, so we've totally nailed how the eye focuses. But what about color? To understand that, we have to zoom out a little and look at what happens to light before it even gets to us.
You know, we think of sunlight as being white or maybe yellow, but it's actually a combination of all the colors of the rainbow, all traveling together. And this phenomenon, this splitting of white light into all its different colors, is called dispersion.
A prism is the perfect way to see this in action. As white light goes into the prism, the different colors, which are really just different wavelengths of light, they all bend by slightly different amounts. Violet light, which has a shorter wavelength, it bends the most, and red light, with its long, lazy wavelength, bends the least. This difference in the bending angle is what fans all the colors out into that beautiful spectrum we see.
But what about the blue sky? That's not a prism, right? Well, that's caused by something called scattering. Now, this table shows a few different types, but the one we care about, the one that makes our sky blue, is right at the top. Rayleigh scattering. This happens when sunlight hits the tiny, tiny molecules of nitrogen and oxygen in our atmosphere. These little particles are way better at scattering the shorter blue and violet wavelengths in all directions than they are at scattering the longer red and yellow ones. And since our eyes are more sensitive to blue light, the whole sky looks blue to us.
This leads to a fantastic question. So why is the sky black for an astronaut? Well, it's actually super simple. Space is a vacuum. There's no atmosphere. No atmosphere means no air molecules to scatter the sunlight. And without any scattering, the sunlight just travels in a straight line, and the sky just looks like a black void with bright dots of stars and planets. That blue sky we love is a special effect that only happens when you have an atmosphere.
And that leaves us with one final kind of mind-bending thought. If color is just our brain's interpretation of these specific wavelengths of light that get scattered or reflected into our incredibly complex biological cameras, what does the universe actually look like? What color is a red apple when no one is there to see it? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining me.